Hey there, Chuck Moran here with Online Video Mastery. And I'm excited today because I'm being joined by Sharon MacLean. Sharon is a co-founder of Virtual Conference Mastery, and she's got some really great things she's going to talk about, a little bit about the history of her organization. But right off the bat, what I'd like to do, Sharon, is ask you what it is that your company does for your audience. So take it away.
Hello, Chuck, and thank you very much for this time on air with you. Virtual Conference Mastery, it really reflects what's happened around the world today. We've had a massive shift of people going from in-person meetings to in-person conferences, and we've all landed up online. The trouble is there's been a severe shortage of skills that we see that people need when they're going online. And we really want to help with that. You know, there's a great fear sometimes, Chuck, when we're talking about video, taking pictures of ourselves, also of technology, new technology, and we were all forced to do this so very quickly. And these are some of the areas that we want to really help with Virtual Conference Mastery. Voice, body presentation, conversations, communications, which are slightly different in front of a screen than they are in person. I never planned to be or audition to go on television, but that's really what we're doing here. So that plus, and then how do we treat internal communications when it comes time to large organizations, and how do small business owners get involved with monetizing of this new hardware?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you've taken on quite a challenge, it seems like. Yeah, so I've in my own business, I've noticed how quickly we've been really thrown overboard in a sense. COVID just closed so many things down, and I've interviewed a number of people who, from dance instruction teachers with dance schools to people running Zooms on chambers of commerce, and it's a common thread. People just say, we had no idea what to do. Suddenly we were told by the governor of our state to close down, and here we are. So we've just had to figure it out. Many of them did go to Zoom, but what I love about what I'm hearing about from you, Sharon, is how much bigger you are working now, rather than just sort of teaching a small narrow group of techniques for, say, engagement, which a lot of people are doing. You've got a much bigger mandate.
Well, really what I'm concerned about, Chuck, is the future of work. We have, and we are on the cusp of a tremendous transition. Really right now, we're kind of caught up in the cyclone, and everyone is scrambling just to keep up with Zoom fatigue, for example. And how do we look at a camera? How do we look at that dot and pretend that I'm talking to somebody, to you?
I'm trying right now.
There's all of that, but really what this is going to tell us is that the future of work has changed. Remote working conditions apply here, and we all need to get up to speed. We're not going to go back to the way it was before. There will likely be a hybrid. We all need human interaction. I'm on Team Human myself. I want to say that out loud right now. But there are the soft skills. After we become accustomed to understanding and learning the technology, which we will do, we've done it, phase of, you and I both know about how these phases have changed over the years when it comes time to digital marketing and even legacy marketing. But we're here now where the soft skills are becoming even and ever more important.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I love how you're using the word legacy with you and me, because we've been around, Sharon, longer than a lot of people maybe watching this were on the planet. So yeah, it's a fascinating time, and I think you and I share this love of learning. So what we're learning, I love the idea that we can turn that back out and serve people with it. So let's walk through a hypothetical of an organization that might come to you. So why don't you paint me a picture of a typical type of organization that might come to Virtual Conference Mastery and say, knock, 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 I need your help. So what kinds of services would you provide and what kinds of outcomes would you be looking for?
Very likely there are two, maybe three categories, Chuck. The first will be a corporate trainer, because they have the responsibility on behalf of their organizations to be able to onboard new employees properly, and for those employees to understand the trainings that they are receiving now from that trainer, to join that company in a safe way, in a healthy way, and in a technical way, probably.
Mhm.
So that corporate trainer has and wants to help that individual become a really terrific member of their company.
Mhm.
And we want to help them get really up to speed and how they can see results on behalf of the onboarding group of people. Another group of people will be the presidents of those companies, members of the C-suite, who are out on a daily basis trying to share their story. They're out raising investment dollars for their companies. They're out telling their story because they are the chief marketing person for their companies. In addition to their corporate communication staff or their HR people, they are their chief cheerleader. So they really need to know and understand this new technology as well. We want to help them with their voice training, again, with their body presentation. And Tom Bradshaw has got many years of training corporate presidents, and because he is got a tremendous background, both in as an educator in the Institutes of Higher Learning, as well as for himself, where he's been part of the film industry as well. So he's taken those skills and adapted it for leadership. And then the third point will be probably those entrepreneurs, those startup individuals, again, company presidents who are in business development. In addition to the business development people for large corporations, they really need to know how to use screens to influence and share their stories as well. So what we have to do in many ways is peel back the skin of the apple to see what's at that core for their messaging, and then help them transition and use screens to get their stories across.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, peeling back to the core. That's really great because that apple has grown right from the initial seed of that company. And let's say it's either a startup or a 10-year-old or a 50-year-old company. They're all going through that process of growth, hopefully. But I think often, we've achieved a level of comfort and maturity. People, yes, they had to pivot during COVID, but the COVID pivot actually was such a curveball that trying to sort of sustain yourself as a company as the old Apple just can't work very well. So I love the idea of paring things back down to what that kernel is that you're trying to communicate, and then helping your CEOs and marketing folks readdress that in the new realm.
Mm-hmm. And we all know that at this time, and of course in the post-pandemic stage, whenever that happens, cash flow continues to be a priority for all CFOs, who are now in many ways alongside their presidents and the C-suite are making very strategic decisions, again, about the future of their company, a future of employees, and future of the growth of their company. And now they have an entirely new economy to address, in addition to how they're going to treat and work with their employees and all stakeholders that they have to deal with. Those can be their own boards of directors, in addition to their employees, as well as their customers. So that whole apple, again, as you say, there's a new bite being taken out of it, and so there's some training. So what I don't want to happen, and you'll understand this, Chuck, when I talk about it. I came from the magazine publishing world in media, and I was a magazine publisher for 21 years, local magazine for business in my city. And 10 years ago, you'll probably know this yourself, was when that transition happened in the world of journalism media. and advertising went online to Facebook, well, really everywhere except for the print vehicle or the broadcast vehicle. But sadly, too many media owners rejected the transition of what was happening in time in the economy during their time. And they ignored that transition and they got caught. And so many went broke. So many of those media outlets lost their entire companies. And as we know, news journalists lost their jobs by the thousands over many years. And so when we're talking about virtual conference mastery and maybe the genesis for that, I really saw this happening 10, now 11 years ago, almost the same thing in the meeting world, and combined with the pandemic and combined with so many other factors. But what I wanted to do was see people wake up and say, you know what, you can't ignore this. It is happening. This is the new normal. It might be the better normal, but don't ignore it.
Right. Yeah. Very good. So let's explore a little bit deeper, going back to that model client that might come to you. One of the things that people are having to do now is to take their events and their conferences online. So what type of services can you bring to a company who has always been, let's say, a state association? They've always met in the capital city. They've always gone to the old hotel. They've always gone to that nice ballroom with the red chairs and the nice portraits on the wall and had the drinks and all that stuff. And they, but all of a sudden, yes, maybe this year they can do a limited hybrid sort of event, but how would you counsel an organization like that from the position of your company?
So we would break that concept down into 4 segments, into 4 groups of people, Chuck. First of all, there are the attendees that we want to attend our event. Number 1. Number 2, there are the speakers who need to hit the stage for that event. The third will be the sponsors. And most of us can't produce those conferences for too long without a whole host of sponsors getting involved. Sponsors want to be there too. And the fourth component will be the event organizers themselves. So, and some people will be able to hire out the management of those conferences and those meetings. And in other words, and other people have got event organizers right in the company. So now if we just take that first group, the attendee, and who we're going to invite to the event, those individuals, the attendees, the registrants, how do they network? And that, by the way, networking and sharing of knowledge are the 2 premier areas that people want when they go to a conference or to an event. So how do those people, the attendees, leverage a screen technology and get to know other people either before the event or during the event and even after the event? You and I had a conversation before this session you and I did privately, and we talked about the use of hashtags and how important they are in terms of social marketing. And so we want to be able to educate those individuals who are going to attendees. This is how you can benefit from spending your money, if we're going to be spending your money to attend an event, and how you're going to get value out of that. That's the first group. The second group might be those speakers, speakers who've done awesome jobs in person on stages. They have trained for years, probably, eloquent speakers. Sometimes they are very, very competent, both in person, on stage, and on screens. There are those who will need some additional training and some upskilling when it comes time to speaking to a screen and reaching out to that audience. I mean, we all feel the energy of an audience when we're on stage and in person at a conference. How do we somehow exchange that energy when it comes time to a screen? It's just you and I, or just me talking, or you talking, and a few others. So that's the speaker. And then the third piece will be those very precious sponsors. And I've been dealing with sponsors my entire life, and much of what I have been able to do has always been supported by the sponsored community, the corporate community, and memberships, that kind of thing. We want them engaged. We want them involved, because what it does is it helps to grow and go deeper and even wider than I think a simple and straightforward conference can offer. But those sponsors need ROI. They
Right.
need return on investment for
Right.
sure. And however which way they measure that. So we want to be able to help them understand how it is that they can get the most for their investment when they're assigning or maybe even evaluating an organization with which to align. So the sponsors are important. And then finally, the event organizers themselves, these are not necessarily the professional conference organizing teams that we all know and love. These might be the individuals inside a corporation who are assigned to get that annual general meeting off without a hitch. So much organization goes into putting on a conference event, and often it involves a number of different branches within the organization, the company, and everybody has got to come to the table, with assignment of duties, and they have to be aware of all of the details that go into pulling out a successful conference or a meeting or. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's a comprehensive approach you've developed. That's fascinating. And as we're seeing, I actually interviewed a woman who speaks at conferences, has always spoken at conferences, never thought about having to go online. She's actually a very highly qualified stand-up comedian. And she used to go in front of audiences, live audiences within corporations and at conferences and events, and was very comfortable engaging people with humor and trying to bring people along to lighten up. And she's got this whole thing that she does. Well, suddenly she's on one side of a camera and her audience is on the other.
Yeah.
So I asked her, and actually I'll put a link into the body of this blog post to my interview with her, because I thought it was really fascinating, some of the techniques that she's come up with to try to build engagement with her audience. One thing that she does is she makes her audience, this is probably not doable with several hundred people, but she makes her attendees do something new every 5 minutes. So she would have them, raise their hand or get up and stand or something like that. And one thing I loved about her commentary was that she has people change their Zoom name. So mine, Chuck Moran is on my Zoom tag down at the bottom of the window. She would have them change that to reflect how they're feeling.
I love that.
So yeah, so there's all this ingenuity going on out there that I love learning about. So fascinating stuff. So let's close with a little bit about the other folks that are in your organization, Sharon. You mentioned Tom, and so is he a founder along with you? Tell me a little bit about him and Jeremy and anyone else that you'd like to spotlight.
We have a collaborating partnership, if you will, of 4 people.
Okay.
4 principals. And these are awesome people, and they have tremendous histories in their respective disciplines and in general application to business. So you talked about Thomas Bradshaw. Thomas Bradshaw is again, a voice and body performance coach. He comes from the world of film and television, and he has many years experience with training of the voice, the sight and sound and body performance. He's got awesome tricks when it comes time to learning how to speak to the camera. Thomas Bradshaw. Next is Dr. Jeremy Lukabaugh, and he is an industrial psychologist. So Jeremy really has got wonderful history when it comes time to assessing personalities within the corporate structure and how they can all bank together, work together, and how they might engage in difficult conversations. He also brings to the table some wonderful history and experience with how FBI conversations are held to achieve results. And so again, that's an area that he brings to the table as well. He's got massive background when it comes time to psychology of communications, how to handle that difficult conversation.
Just real quick interruption.
Yeah.
What is SEI? I'm not familiar with that term. Did you
SE,
say SEI conversations?
sorry, I maybe wasn't clear in my language.
Oh,
He was in FBI, I think I was.
I'm sorry. Okay.
FBI.
I
Yeah,
got
the FBI, the
Okay.
FBI secrets.
Yeah,
to
gotcha.
difficult
Yeah, I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah, and then Trip Braden. Trip also is an executive coach. He is a brand journalist and he is an influencer, a tech influencer online. And Trip really has got such breadth of experience when it comes time to working with CEOs and organizations in many facets, turning their thoughts around when it comes time to and when it comes time to changing the direction or really finding the voice of a company and really finding what needs to perhaps pivot when it comes time to restructuring, growing, business development. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we've got a wonderful team.
Yeah, sounds
In
like
addition to that, I want to see the next group of people as well that Tom brings to the table. We have a sound engineer, we have a set designer, and we have a production manager, essentially.
wow.
And so these individuals bring their skills to the conversation when we need to go into that direction as well.
Fantastic. Great. Well, this has really been enjoyable, Sharon. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today. And I certainly look forward to learning more about virtual conference mastery and all the good that you're doing for that space and all the companies that you get to serve.
Likewise, Chuck, I also am so grateful to have met you and to know about your training in Zoom technology, as well as iPhone and video production. So we really are on a parallel journey here. And that's what's been fun about this virtual world, you and I meeting. Thanks.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I'm excited about getting those trainings out there. So yeah, thank you very much. And we'll talk soon. Take care.
You too.